Okay, so my bass amp, my Cort CM150B, let me down on a gig recently where the jack socket stopped working. It wasn't engaging properly, it wasn't staying in, it wasn't making contact. Every time I pushed the jack in, it would be intermittent. It wasn't the lead. I tried the cable, tried everything. So I'm going to swap the jack socket on the amp. So first thing I need to do is I need to take the amplifier part out of the combo. So I've taken all the screws out. I just need to remove the amp itself. Okay, that's very short, which was the connection to the board just here. It's incredibly short, I only just reached that. Okay, so that's the amp. I haven't used it for a while, so hopefully all the capacitors have sort of decharged themselves, but I'm going to be careful. I'm not going to touch any capacitors. What I need to do now is I need to unscrew the board itself from the housing so that I can get to this, which is the jack socket. It's a board mounted jack socket, and I'm going to replace it for one that goes in a guitar instead, because these are always failing. I've had problems with them before. Okay, so all these washers and nuts are off now. I should be able to just undo the screws that hold the board on and pop the board off, hopefully. So the screws that were holding the board in had you can see that anti-tamper plastic poured into them, so I had to cut the top of the plastic off and then force the screwdriver in to get them to turn. I guess that's a deliberate thing to make you buy a new one when it stops working. Okay, that's the board out. Okay, so this on the end there is the culprit we want to change. I thought about just swapping it for one of the effects send and return ones, because I never use a send and return effects loop, but I think I'm going to just put, as I mentioned before, I'm just going to put a standard socket on there. So what I need to do is I need to desolder it from the board, these four connections here, work out which is the ground and which is the hot, and then make some little jumper leads to go from there to the jack socket. But first, let's get rid of this. To remove this solder, I'm going to use a solder sucker. So what you do with a solder sucker is you heat up the solder with the solder sucker next to it, and when it goes molten, press the button and it sucks the solder up into the tube. It stops you damaging the board with overheating. There are other ways to do it with this sort of foil solder remover tape where you can solder onto it, but I like these. These are really good. You literally just do that. So we're just going to use a little bit of solder, just a tiny bit, to tease this off. And there we go. It's off and left in the board are 4 little holes. We just need to work out which ones are hot and which ones are earth, then we can make some little jumper leads. Okay, so this is what we're replacing the board mounted one with. It's just a standard jack socket from a guitar or a instrument. I'm going to prep a couple of small jumper leads to go from the jack socket to the board. So I need to solder these on. And I found with these jack sockets, they've got a sort of coating on them. It's always worth getting a file and just filing back the area where you're going to solder, just so it's got something to adhere to. Okay, and there we have it. You see I've soldered the hot and the earth to the board, like so. There we go. And now I just need to reassemble everything. I haven't soldered both sides. The board mounted one had 2 earths and 2 hots. Now I'm only assuming that's because it's a board mounted one, so there's 4 feet, so it sits comfortably, but we'll find out when we plug it in. Okay, let's reassemble this. So now the amp's back together. There's a quick close-up of it in position. You can see it's just sitting nicely. It's all soldered into the board. When the jack goes in, it engages. When I pull the jack out, it's nice and solid in there. You can see it's great. So let's put it back together with the speaker. Okay, so I've got a bass. Let's plug it in, see what happens. Seems pretty solid. Yeah, that's good. Definitely pleased with that. Good afternoon's work.